Now, National Women's Day takes place tomorrow. Whilst the day commemorates the 1956 Women's March against South Africa's oppressive past laws, the day also draws attention to significant issues that South African women still face today, including discrimination in the workplace. Now, one type of discrimination comes in the form of gender stereotyping, which shapes our expectations about whether a man or a woman is better fit for a given job, a bias that can often have a host of employment outcomes. Now, this issue came to the fore recently when the SA Institution of Civil Engineering CEO, Manglin Pillay, wrote an article questioning the place of women in the profession, saying that women are predisposed to caring and people-oriented careers. Well, needless to say, this has caused some outrage by, amongst others, the organisation Women in Engineering, Womeng. Joining us now is the co-founder of Womeng, Hema Vallabh. Hema, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
All right, so your initial reactions to Manglin Pillay's comments, I mean, they pretty much negate everything that you're trying to do in terms of having a more diverse engineering workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, initial reaction was, is this for real? Is this a joke? Is this a satirical article? Because it was that ludicrous. And, you know, as you started reading the article, unfortunately, it just got worse and worse. And hence the outrage. I mean, we issued a statement saying that, beyond disappointment, we're deeply outraged because this should not be tolerated in this day and age. You know, this is sexism. This is such a deep level of misogyny. Unfortunately, though, I mean, he's put on a public platform.
Yeah.
It exists often more discreetly than this year, but it would be a lie to say that this is the first time. So to say I was surprised, it was more because it was on a public platform, but not surprised by the actual thoughts.
All right, so I mean, he's going through a process with the SAIC anyway, and so they'll have their own outcome. But let's talk a little bit about some of the statistics he quotes. He talks about size almost 16,000 database, 17% are women. Of the 4,000 student members, 31% are women. And he talks about female engineers, when they get into middle management, women tend to want to work part-time or dedicate themselves completely to child rearing or more meaningful exploits generally related to caring. Is he misusing the statistics here?
I think where he's really gone wrong is making blanketed statements. So to say that all women prefer to be caregivers and all women aren't ambitious or driven enough. You know, women empowerment, feminism, whatever you want to call it, isn't about, you know, that you must be a CEO or you must be this. It's about choice. So if women choose to be that, that's great. But let me tell you, there are more than enough women who are driven enough, more than capable. And I mean, the achievements of women in the field, they are, you know, there are too many to list, because women have contributed greatly to engineering, both here in South Africa and internationally over the years. So I think his blanketed statements that we should only be caregivers, I mean, like I said, you really have to digest that, right?
All right, so tell me about the consequences of this kind of stereotyping. I mean, are we saying that some young girls who could have been engineers are not choosing it as a profession because of the stereotyping?
Yes, I mean, so I think Lean In came out with a report about 2 years ago saying girls as young as 6 years old are deciding, one, that boys are smarter, and two, that, you know, this is a man's job and this is a lady's job. And that's really dangerous because these stereotypes exist because of the cultural narratives, our daily narratives, the unconscious bias that exists. So when we see little girls, what do? We give them dolls. And I'm not saying playing with dolls is a bad thing, but let them know they also have the option to play with robots or Lego. And until we change that, then of course girls are growing up thinking, but you know, every engineer I've known is only a man. Because that's the other side of the issue. When you haven't seen anybody who looks like you, who sounds like you, in that kind of position, why would you believe you could?
And the very real economic consequences. I believe that in terms of hiring, it can be affected, whether it's a male or female candidate. Even how you're assessed professionally once you're hired is affected.
Absolutely. So, you know, the minute you see a female name on a CV, the unconscious bias comes through right there. oh, is she going to get pregnant and leave? You know, is she going to stay in industry? Do we invest in developing her? And that's really dangerous because you're already setting the tone up front. And as it is, engineering is a scarce skill, right? We are very aware that we need more engineers. If you are excluding half the population already, then where are you going to fill the gap? The second thing is, I mean, women, like I said, make up more than half the population. They control 80% market share. So if engineers who literally design the world we live in, if women aren't part of that story, part of the design, who's catering for the end user? So I think, you know, it's so dangerous to exclude them from, like I said, young grassroots level, at graduate level, and then when they get into industry to face, like I said, this sort of misogyny and sexism. So at every level, there are barriers, there are obstacles, and then we wonder why at the very top there are no women.
So what needs to happen? Because I do think that there are some men who have bought into the stereotype and not realized it actually, or even questioned it, and behave in a certain way, and that he might have been well-meaning, but perhaps it's out of ignorance rather than it's pure misogyny.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he thinks he's been well-meaning. I mean, the way he starts his article that I am your friend. And there's this level of, a high level of condensation right there, right? Because yes, unconscious bias is by definition, you know, men sometimes don't realize that they're putting these obstacles at play. But at the level he's talking at, I find it very hard to believe he didn't realize just how discriminatory those remarks are and what the impact of that is. And more so, that's an enabler because, like I said, he's put this on a public platform. All this has done has enabled men, men and women perhaps, lower down who are, you know, quietly thinking, oh, now it's okay for me to think like that. On the flip side, I'm not saying all men are our enemies, right? In my engineering career, I've always had male managers, I've had male mentors. With women, some of our greatest champions have been men. And that's the bigger point. It's, you know, women empowerment, equality. We're not equal until we're all equal. And until men and women start jointly having this conversation, we're not going to see a result.
Yeah. All right, so what needs to happen to fix this?
Well, one, you know, I'm the eternal optimist, so if I had to pick one bit of positive outcome out of this article, is that at least we've started this conversation. Because like I said, we've known it's there. Speak to any female engineer and she can tell you at least one story. The fact that this has come to the fore, the fact that we're having this discussion, it means hopefully now women who are facing challenges at work are more able to come forward and say this is not okay. One, they feel less lonely because I know when I was an engineer and you feeling that, you think you're the only one. I think by us sharing our stories, other women are actually realizing it's not only me. And secondly, like I said, through the work that Womeng does, this is, and that's why with SABC, depending on whatever the outcome is, we're willing to work with them because there needs to be transformation. This deep-rooted discrimination and sexism needs to change. And unless we're going forward and saying, let's start the conversation, it's not going to happen by itself. And it's certainly not going to happen overnight.
Well, I'm so glad that you were able to come to us today and have a chat and start the conversation on another platform. Hema, thanks very much for joining us and good luck with your endeavours at Womeng.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Thanks so much. All right, so that's where we'll leave this conversation for now, but one that needs to certainly keep going on, and we'll keep a track of that particular story for you as well. Pillay, sir?
All right, thank you so much, Peter.